Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 197 of the All Dolphins podcast on this day after the Dolphins were eliminated from the playoffs.
Let me get ready for
26
my
to
history
7.
lesson.
Sorry.
I said, let me get ready for my history
There
lesson.
you go. Well, there are a couple of things that we got going on here. First off, today is January 14th, which means it's now the 52nd anniversary of the Dolphins completing their perfect season with a 14-7 victory against the Washington Redskins in Super
Woohoo!
Bowl 7. Yeah. Still a feat unmatched in NFL annals, going through a regular season and the playoffs undefeated. And this is a little tidbit from that particular game that's most older Dolphin fans would know. That
And
had
the
it not,
younger ones like me would have no idea.
probably not. Had it not been for the ridiculous Garo Yepremian gaffe when he had a field goal attempt block, it came right back to him, and then he tried to throw a pass and basically just flubbed it straight up into the air. Returned for a touchdown, which made the final score 14-7. Had instead he made the field goal, it would have been 17-0. 17-0 final score for a 17-0 season.
Let me ask you a question. And understand that I know about the 72 team, don't know much about the 72 team other than what I was told. If they made a 30 for 30 documentary on it, do you think people would watch and care? No. Why?
Because it's 50 years old.
Okay.
Um,
So why the hell we keep bringing it up?
Again, because it's a feat. Well, NFL Network has done some stuff on it. And our good friend Dave Hyde wrote a book, which I edited.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I look back called Still Perfect, which is an excellent book. Highly recommended if you're a Dolphin fan, which told stories from that season and catching up with guys years after the fact. Very, very good. But a 30 for 30, I'm not sure. Again, but NFL Network did something. They did something on the Dolphins backfield of Zonka Kick and Mercury Morris. And then Shula's had like a perfect life, I think it was called, or something, or football life, whatever, something like that. So it's been done. A couple of quick other things on the live recap podcast Saturday night. We didn't do retrospective of 96 to match the episode number. That was Jimmy Johnson's first year. Dolphins ended the season 8-8, didn't make the playoffs. The big story there was that they had their first 1,000-yard rusher, rookie third-round pick Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, for the first time since 1978. So they ended quite a long drought. So 1997, Jimmy Johnson's second year at the helm, the Dolphins did make the playoffs. They finished 9-7, and this was one of those rare instances you see in the NFL where you face the same team in the regular season finale and the playoffs.
New England?
Correct. No, you're looking at the media guides.
I'm cheating, yes.
Okay, but you may, I don't know if you remember the fabulous quote. I'll tell you in a second. Dolphins lost the regular season finale at home 14-12, lost a playoff game 17-3 at New England, with stories about how the New England defenders knew the Dolphins players before they were coming, which led to, among other things, a pick six. And after the game, Dolphin offensive coordinator Gary Stevens famously said about his offense, "You can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit."
That had Kareem
Not in the media guide.
No, that had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Marino, McDuffie, Troy Drayton, and I guess that was kind of the only other receiver because I'm looking at the receiver list and it's kind of thin. McPhails, Lamar Thomas, Perryman. Well, I'm assuming that's Brett Perryman, who was older than dirt. And some guy named Jordan. Who is this Jordan guy? Scored 3 touchdowns.
It was Charles Jordan, who the Dolphins had gotten from Green Bay. I should also add that 1997 was the year the Dolphins drafted both Sam Madison and Jason Taylor in the second and third rounds, respectively, after taking Yatil Green from the University of Miami in the first round, due to an ACL, first training camp, second training camp, career over. And I often see him on lists of draft busts for the Dolphins. I mean, the dude tore an ACL, 2 straight training camps. Cut him some slack.
One of my first ever Dolphins practices I covered as an intern with the Sun Sentinel. I think I've shared this story on the podcast before. That was when I learned Marino had a potty mouth. And yeah. And I remember because we were at that time, Jimmy Johnson allowed like media members on the field so you could hear everything. And Marino chewed out Yatil Green for dropping passes. And then he said, and I heard with my own ears, if you drop one more mother bleeping pass, I'm never going to bleeping throw you the mother bleeping ball ever again. This is this guy's rookie season.
Yeah.
He goes out, and I understand I'm like a 20-year-old intern. I don't even think I could drink at that time. And I'm like, oh my God, this is how they talk in the NFL. Yatil runs the route deep. He's wide open. Marino throws in the ball. Yatil bubbles the ball again, falls, ACL torn. That's it.
Oh, Jesus. Marino put a.
You know, I remember that it was probably just another practice for you.
Yeah.
But I remember that day like it was yesterday, because understand that was like my first like time covering the NFL, and Jimmy Johnson and Dan Marino and Yatil Green, and you know, and like I had never known that Dan Marino cursed. Like, oh my God, like every fourth word was a curse word.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is why I know there's some people who are like surprised when they watch Hard Knocks and see Mike McDaniel cursing like a sailor. But yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring it back to the future and
future. You mean present?
Well, sorry, present.
We don't know nothing.
We're already looking ahead. Normally, this would be the day when Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer would have their season-ending press conference together, and it would be locker clean-out, David, because of the travel situation. That's going to take place tomorrow, so we'll have a lot to talk about on the show. Does that sound like artistic? On the show, as opposed to on the podcast. On these airwaves tomorrow. Today is
autopsy day, baby.
Sorry?
It's autopsy day.
There you go. Yeah, postmortem. Yeah, and then the day after, it's not any prettier than it was. So Omar suggested.
I actually tried to watch the game last night again. Oh man, that it was worse the second time around than the first. But anyway, continue. Let's continue.
Yes. No, I was going to say that Omar suggested, and instead of rehashing the painful reality of that game, that we each come up with our top 5 reasons why the season went south. And what we're going to do is Omar's going to give us top 5. I'll give my top 5. Then we'll revisit each of those and discuss.
These are not excuses.
I love how you have to preface that.
Understand, these are not excuses, because when we began this season, and I do stand on this, the expectation, the hope, the statement of everybody unilaterally viewed moving forward as a franchise required the winning of a playoff game. Correct? And I don't think that was an unreasonable bar to create.
Correct.
So these are not excuses for why the season fell short.
Okay, let me guess. Your top 5 reasons are going to be 5 injuries. Is that what?
Well, since you want to jump ahead and get into my 5 reasons,
go ahead.
Let's begin my 5 reasons by saying your offense was trash in the final month of the season. It just was. And I do know you had the number 1 offense in the NFL during the entire season, but who can argue and debate the fact that the offense was trash in the final month of the season? I don't think
we're not debating that right now, because you're supposed to just give your list.
Yes,
I give my list,
yes.
We discuss.
So, you know, in the 7 games versus winning teams this season, the Dolphins averaged 15.8 points, and 2 had a 1-6 record. That includes the final.
The team had a 1-6 record. Okay.
Yeah. So let's get into my 5 reasons, and we begin with 5 reasons the season collapsed. Number 1 for me, your top 4 playmakers on offense were all injured. Okay. That's the final month of the season. Waddle, Hill, Mostert, Acham. Nobody else on your team really made a play this year, except for those 4 people. I'm trying to think of anybody else who made a play. I really can't think of anybody. Who? Who's
That's the
two?
number 2 reason.
Okay, number 2 reason.
You're going against a format we had agreed
No,
upon.
no, no. I'm just articulating. Number
Okay.
2 is the Dolphins' defense got watered down by injuries. Okay, we know what the injuries are. We can discuss them. McDaniel's number 3. McDaniel's halftime adjustments were lacking. Maybe I shouldn't just say McDaniel, but the coaching staff's halftime adjustments were lacking. Number 4, Tua wasn't clutch. He had 6 opportunities to deliver fourth quarter wins or ties. He only succeeded twice. That's 2 of 6. And then the final reason that the Dolphins season collapsed is this franchise struggles with their offense, running their offense, not a semblance of their offense, but running their offense on the road. Yeah, I don't think it's, you can say the exceptions there were exceptions, but flat out, they can't run their offense on the road. So they're only a home team. Okay. All right. Those are my 5.
Okay. I'm going to go in reverse order.
Okay.
Don't ask me why, because I feel like doing it. And then number 2, I don't pinpoint any players. And I'll explain why later on. I know this is shocking to you, but I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. So I have to look closely because I'm blind. I decided to take off my glasses to try to, I don't know, look different. Number 5, special teams breakdowns at bad moments.
Okay.
Number 4.
Only in like the final 2 games, correct?
Correct, but they were key games at a time when, again, we were going to discuss this later, but
yeah,
that's fair enough that they were mostly relegated to those 2 games. Number 4 is for short yardage offense.
Poor short yardage offense? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I said short yardage offense, and by implication, poor. Yes. Number 3, I'm like with you, second half adjustments, and the fact that they scored 15 points in the second half of their final 4 games combined is pretty bad indictment. Number 2, you'll love this one: injuries.
Okay.
More so on defense than on offense. I mean, when you're losing, they played the playoff game yesterday without 5 opening day starters. Again, we'll discuss later. And then number 1, this is going to be a curveball. The Dolphins basically were exposed for what they are as a team. That the season that okay, you want me to we'll start explaining this one? Okay.
Yes.
What I mean by that is not so much that the Dolphins collapsed, is that the Dolphins were unveiled for who they were as a team, which is a team that abuses bad teams, and absolutely cannot rise up to the level of competition. And when they play really good teams, they're just not good enough to match up. They were 1-6, I think, including the playoff game against playoff teams, and that was a squeaky win against Dallas, which is a notoriously bad road team. And then in a lot of games, they were overmatched. They were overmatched against the Chiefs for whatever reason. Overmatched against the Chiefs. They were overmatched in the first Buffalo game, even though it was relatively close. They were overmatched at Philly. I wouldn't say they were overmatched the first KC game. They were overmatched last night. The second Buffalo game, it was close in score, but you look at the yardage again as a 200-yard difference. And to me, and if you look at their wins, their strength of victory percentage based on the opponent's winning percentage of the teams they beat is really bad. Look at the bottom of the AFC standings. It's New England, Chargers, Raiders, Denver, I forget who, and it's basically all teams the Dolphins beat. And then you look at the NFC, you have Carolina, the Giants, Washington. Those are the teams the Dolphins beat.
You played on your schedule.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that it kind of maybe fooled us, and I'm going to plead guilty. I actually thought the Dolphins were better than they actually are, but this is who they are. They're not a team that can compete with the big boys.
I don't like that when people say that. You know this. We've discussed this the whole season. You play your schedule. Anybody could get you. Tennessee is proof of that. Tennessee, that one loss soiled your entire season. And
Okay, time out. Here's the thing, and that's a very, very easy target. The Tennessee loss spoiled your season.
is it not?
Are you? I
Is it
agree.
not? Is it not a
I
fact?
agree. But are you that confident they win if they play a playoff game at home instead of on the road?
No, I don't. I don't think that, because who would they have played? You give me the Rain Man. If they had won that game, who would they played in the first round?
Well, if Buffalo had beaten the Dolphins, then they would have had Pittsburgh, which is not a great team.
No. If they had beaten Bills, let's say they get a miraculous victory and they've beaten Bills. And
no, but that's the point to me, and that's the point I'm making. Is what the final games revealed is that the Dolphins are not as good as the Bills. Are not in that class.
Yes. So are you telling me that they would have played the Bills? Who would they have hosted?
No, I think they would have, again, they played things, the rest of the season plays out the way it did, then I think they would have gotten Pittsburgh. And then Pittsburgh's not a great playoff team. So
okay, so they would have, so if they had beaten the Bills last week, they would have hosted Pittsburgh.
Tell me. Yes, they would have gotten Pittsburgh, but I'm saying they were not going to beat the Bills.
Okay, yes, I know they were not going to beat the Bills, but okay, well, if they had done what they needed to do, they probably could have beaten Pittsburgh. And
I agree, because Pittsburgh's not a great team, and then they would have gotten smacked the next round instead.
Correct. Yes, I mean, I'm not talking, as I said from the very beginning, 2 weeks ago, when Xavier Howard went down, like Super Bowl talk done. And I'll throw in Bradley Chubb on that as well, even before the Andrew Van Ginkel. See, my view that they were no longer Super Bowl contenders were when they lost Howard and Jalen and Bradley Chubb. Like, I was comfortable with Van Ginkel and you could figure it out, but then when you lost everybody else, it's like, come on, let's be realistic here. You're not the same team anymore. But maybe they could have beaten Pittsburgh. But there's no chance that you were going to beat Buffalo, in my opinion. And
Baltimore.
You're not going to beat Baltimore. But those are also the two teams that I think are the Super Bowl contenders in the AFC. And you're just not there yet. But
or Kansas City. Because here's the thing. I think to me,
put that on a neutral site.
But hold on, they did play in a neutral site in case he won. Although it was a game the Dolphins could have won. Here's the thing where I would agree with you to a certain degree that had the defense remained where it was in terms of personnel, it gave them a fighting chance. But let's also not pretend that the defense was infallible, because I think at the time of the Tennessee collapse, they had pretty much all of their guys except for Phillips and Holland.
Tennessee Xavier got hurt, but he finished that game.
Correct.
Yes.
So the defense was not infallible, is what I'm trying to say. And the offense, for all the good that it does, is not good enough right now.
It's not good enough. It's not good enough. Which gets into one of mine, which is they're just not the same team on the road that they are at home, and that's an offensive thing. I want to address. I don't like the fact that you say and continue to say they aren't good against good teams. Well, the majority of the times that they played good teams, they played them on the road. And I know you're going to say Kansas City and on a neutral field. And okay, I can kind of agree with that. But that leads into my argument where
Buffalo at home.
Yeah, you play Buffalo at home and you had your opportunities, but that was also a game where you've got very limited offensive weaponry. And I'm not making excuses.
But you also gave a 450. And again, even last year, they lost to Green Bay at home, and then they also lost, and Green Bay didn't make the playoffs. But this was during their run at the end of the season, and they beat Buffalo at home in a game that they got outgained by 250 yards. And can we admit that they were lucky to win that game?
Tremendously lucky. And that was more luck than it was execution. But I just don't. I never buy into, they can't be good opponents or can't be good teams. To me, it comes down to execution against bad teams and good teams. And unfortunately, they failed to execute against the good teams. And they managed for various reasons. And
the opponent makes it tougher. The better opponent makes it tougher than you're playing a sieve defense. That's like, okay, here you go.
Could be the fact that you were playing at home versus on the road, and I don't know. Um, we
Yeah.
both had injuries in there. I lumped it in for two of my justifications why the season went south. I am sorry. Name me. I'm taking a healthy Waddle, Tariq, and I know Tariq played the majority of. He only missed one game, but was it Tariq that we know
No,
Tariq?
no.
Okay. It was like a very good receiver, not the best receiver in the game. So no Waddle, no Tyreek, no Mostert, who tied for the lead in rushing touchdowns. And Achan playing, but not really all the way himself. Now, highest yard per carry average in NFL history. Yes. But was he playing at 100%? No. I
But
think
who
that
is at this time of year? Again, to me, if they're in the lineup, sorry, I'm not buying. I'm not going with that.
okay,
I'll,
that's
I'll
fair.
give you. I'll give you the injuries on defense because guys were actually out.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, so none of my injuries on offense count because some of those guys.
It's not that they don't count. Is I don't want to put too much stock in them because you're basically suggesting now that the people covering Tyreek were fresh as daisies and no
No,
injuries whatsoever.
no, they weren't. But it's a lot easier. I mean, we will acknowledge and admit that how defense played Miami completely changed when Waddle was out of the lineup.
Yeah, but he wasn't out all the time. He wasn't out every game again when they played good teams and they couldn't get anything done offensively.
That's all season. I'm talking about the final month of the season
Okay,
when
when did
things went
Waddle
south.
leave Dallas? No, correct, but he was there yesterday and
Yeah, was
had a
he?
couple of catches.
He was there. He was there. He was there. Was he good? He was there.
Again, I'd have to look at the all 22 to see how he was running his routes and whether it was not getting the ball to him and was he open. I don't know.
They weren't throwing anything deep anyway, so it really didn't matter.
Right.
So why would I fear him and change and alter my approach when literally nobody's running deep, and they were ultra aggressive in the box and pressing and hitting and taking away the screens. They feared nothing. Miami did, and whether it was the elements or whether it was the injuries, I don't know, but they played Miami completely.
You know, you don't want to say it, but you know.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. Hey, he threw a deep ball to Tyreek. All right, it happened. It happened in the game.
Sure.
It happened.
I know. Great play by Tyreek.
All right, touche. Well, second half adjustments. We both had that on our list. I don't know what to think about that because this is not something that I thought all season. This is not something that was problematic all season. It just became problematic in the final month of the season, primarily when you were coaching up against superior coaches, in my opinion. What were you saying?
Or better teams.
No. Oh, no. Okay,
I'm going to check. I'm going to check right now. Go ahead and continue your point. I'm going to check.
They are better teams, but they're also filled with better coaches. Harbaugh, Andy Reid,
Sean McDermott.
Sean
McDermott.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess he's a superior coach, especially from a defensive standpoint. And
Okay, Omar, here you go. 6 points in the second half of Buffalo in October. 7 points in the second half at Philadelphia. KC, they did have two third quarter touchdowns, and then we have what happened down the stretch.
It wasn't good. I would need to do more of a deep dive and an analysis and look into it. This is just something that just flared up on me recently, and I think the opponent and the situations of the game kind of change your approach. The one thing that I will say that did notice throughout the season was, and Hard Knocks really helped me uncover it. When Tua's pressing, he presses, and there's a dial down effect that Mike McDaniels had been trying to work with him to kind of get him to play more composed as opposed to pressing. And I think he's a different quarterback when he's pressing. That's something that he's going to have to work through, and that's something that he's going to have to adapt and adjust in 2024 to be a more even-keeled quarterback, because I don't necessarily think that it's a major problem, but it is a problem when he's trailing and when he starts to press. And also to factor in, teams play them differently when they develop a bigger lead and they start sitting onto his routes. And that can become problematic at
Is
times.
it an issue of pressing though, or is it an issue of them taking away his first read, and then all of a sudden now he's got to rescan the field and
I don't think he has a problem, and I'm hearing this, and I don't sit. I didn't. We weren't talking about this in the earlier month of the season or last year
because he didn't have to reset the guys were open quickly. When the guys are open quickly and he gets rid of the ball like this, it hums and it looks really, really good, and he racks up the huge numbers, and we're talking MVP. And here's the thing: it was the same thing last year when the Dolphins were 8-3, and I know you were. There were several people who were like, he was an MVP candidate, and actually he was in the conversation. And then all of a sudden, they got to good teams. They started squeezing the middle of the field, and all of a sudden it went just like it did this year.
Yes. I mean, they squeeze the middle of the field, and it becomes a problem for Miami. And, you now know how teams will play you and approach you, which is why we see all that horizontal stuff. If you're not stretching the field vertically and horizontally, the middle of the field is going to be compacted. So that's why they did that. Now the question is, can they grow and evolve and counter that? And that's what good coaching does. Unfortunately, it didn't happen in the final month of the season. But as I said in one of my 5 reasons why the season went south, what weapons did they have? You take those top 4 playmakers out of the game. Name me your best offensive weapon.
Cedric Wilson, who made some plays down the field on the rare throws that Tua has made outside the numbers in recent weeks.
And would Cedric Wilson be a number 3 receiver on 10 NFL teams?
Dude, yes. Let's not.
I'm asking the question. Name me what 10 NFL teams would Cedric Wilson be a number 3 receiver?
You're going to do this, Omar? Okay, let me take 20 minutes and look at every team's.
No. Listen. What receiver? No, give me the number of receiver Cedric Wilson was coming out of training camp.
We assumed he was a lot lower than that because we were expecting Braxton Berrios to play a big role. And what kind of role did Braxton Berrios wind up playing?
Nothing.
In terms of performance with your eyes, tell me he wasn't the third best receiver.
He was the third best receiver, and he earned that role. Correct. Obviously, he clearly earned that role in practice. Okay. And that's an indictment on the team and in personnel.
Or maybe it's all of us, like for maybe underestimating what Wilson was based on the fact that he was completely forgotten last year and he didn't look good in training camp. First training camp of that offense, and maybe we overestimated.
And the second training camp. Don't act like he looked good last training camp.
And maybe I meant the last training camp. I didn't say anything about this one. Or maybe we overestimated the guys that they brought in, and like returning Izukama, who the Dolphins, not by any fault of his, but they got nothing out of him because he had the neck issue. And then they bring in, and I know you were championing Robbie the entire year. And obviously the Dolphins didn't think necessarily a whole lot of him because they practically never used him. And then he was healthy scratch yesterday. And Chase Claypool, who the Dolphins made it a point to bother throwing a 2025 6th-round pick, which is kind of nothing, but basically barely used the dude.
Mm-hmm.
I think what?
He was here in breaking case of emergency situations, and emergency situations led to a drop in the end zone and a circular route that led to an interception on the final play of the season. I'm fine with that for a 6th-round flyer. But
except I'm gonna say that something I always say: if somebody's getting a high 2nd-round pick gets traded twice in 2 years, ask yourself, there's got to be a reason for that. It's not just always bad circumstances or something like that.
Mm-hmm. True. I'm not sitting there arguing with you. I don't think he showed anything this season, and I'd be shocked if he's even back. But hey,
he's a free agent, so I can't imagine. I believe he's a free agent.
Yes, he's a free agent. You never know. You never know how these things play out in terms of what they'll do or what they'll offer or who they like or whether or not he wants to stay here and give it a try. I don't know. We got a whole offseason to talk about the Miami Dolphins offseason, and we will do that, as you know, right here alldolphins.com. We're not going anywhere. Free coverage, a free coverage for a team that you love, and we'll be here during the offseason. You talked
And that's a
about,
threat. Sorry, go ahead.
huh?
That's a threat. It's not a promise. It's a threat. Go ahead.
Hey, you talked about special teams, and I got to admit, oversight on my part. Not saying that they were a bad unit, but they've had absolutely no threat to return anything all year. Had some bad special teams moments in terms of blocks and returns, and in the pivotal stretch. Now, how much do you excuse that on having your units watered down by injuries? And
I don't.
why don't you? When Brandon Jones,
And
Elijah Campbell,
every team has injuries. I don't want to make everything about injuries because we're going to go back. And the last thing I want the Dolphins to do is give themselves a false sense of security of like, hey, we'd have been great if that hadn't been for their injuries. Yes, they sucked, and maybe they would have been more competitive. Sure. But to put everything on that. And I did a story yesterday on alldolphins.com talking about the special teams, which ranked 31st in longtime writer Rick Gosselin's annual special teams ranking, 31st out of 32. He basically ranks every team in 22 different statistical categories. And the other fact that the other stat, was my stat, they were one of only two teams in the NFL without a punt return of at least 20 yards or a kickoff return of at least 35 yards. And the other team that was in that category actually is kind of a Super Bowl favorite, and that's the 49ers. But the 49ers are better all around where they don't need necessarily the extra help. The Dolphins are not at the point where they couldn't use – I mean, it'd be great if they had a Jakeem Grant type of guy. Even the Chargers, whose special teams were booty cheeks for many years, took a small guy from TCU. I think he wanted to make in the Pro Bowl. The Dolphins could use one of those guys. Braxton Berrios was very dependable, solid, but you don't have that explosiveness who can turn the game around. And that Buffalo game, chances are they don't win anyway without the punt return, but that play still turned the game around.
Absolutely. I did not think about it. It was an oversight on my part in terms of special teams. Do you think that Crossman survives?
Didn't think he would survive last year, if I'm going to be honest with you, because their special teams weren't good last year either, and he came back. And for those who comment about not asking the tough questions of Mike McDaniel, he literally was asked point blank why he brought Danny Crossman back. That doesn't get more blunt and direct than that. I can't imagine why he would bring him back. I can't. Nothing against Danny Crossman, but it's like he's been there since 2020. The special teams has not been great. There are some clear-cut stud special teams coaches. Dolphins had one of those when they had Darren Rizzi. But he interviewed for the head coaching job when they gave it to Flores, and he was like, bye-bye, I'm gone. Went to the Saints, and he's still there.
I don't know how to answer that because I really don't, you'd have to have the ability to hire a better coach, and maybe he will, maybe he does. We shall see. Poor short yardage offense.
Last night again, and this was the drive. The drive they were down. I have to look at my play-by-play here. I hate it when I don't have that handy. Hold on. I apologize. This makes for bad television or video, whatever. Second drive, Dolphins down 7-0. Run the ball finally after their first drive, did nothing on the ground. 8-6, 5-4 yards. 3rd and 1 from the KC 44. Throw a swing pass to Mostert. It's off target. 4th and 1. Throw another pass. Tua gets some pressure, rolls outside, throws to Tyreek. Very, very good defensive play. Over the back, a hair. Could they have flagged him for DPI? Sure, they've done that before, but it was more of a good play. Again, why are we throwing the ball in 3rd and 1, 4th and 1? Jesus. And I know the answer. That was a rhetorical question. It wasn't like, and that's an element. Playoff teams also don't make it a habit of always. And this is where power versus finesse. What do you think? What do the Bills do on those situations? Josh Allen quarterback sneak. What do the Eagles do during those situations? Tush push.
Okay, so it's always about the quarterback has to push it over, get the
No, what
yard.
do the Ravens do? They'll hand off to Gus Edwards. Generally speaking, more often than not. And this is where, again, this is a massive failing for the Dolphins. I mean, Alec Kingo played 12 snaps yesterday. Fullback, Pro Bowl fullback. Why is he playing 12 snaps?
In the snow? Yeah,
Correct.
I'm with you on that one. I'm absolutely with you on that one. I don't know. Second half adjustments we both agreed upon. No perspective from you on Tua wasn't clutch.
No, he wasn't. I mean, that's but again, if we're talking about how the season went south, like last night, he didn't have an opportunity to be clutch because they were out of the game. So it wasn't. Yeah, it's part of an issue. I think Tua's a good quarterback. I don't think he's an elite quarterback, and I don't know what his ceiling is. I have an idea of what I think it is, and it is what it is, as the saying goes.
Yeah. The evidence is there. I'd like to believe Tua is clutch. I expected him to show that this season. He did not. In too many instances, he fell short of meeting what my expectations were. The question is, can he continue to develop and grow and blossom in the third year in this offense with maybe some patched up areas, maybe a year of redefining his body, physical fitness, scrambling, working on his athleticism. Did have 2 nice scrambles in that game. Yeah, but we shall see. This team will continue to evolve. Mike McDaniel talked about that. What's up?
No, guys, I want to bring this up because somebody asked me this or hit me up with this on Twitter, bringing up the old Drew Brees comparison that it took him a while to get going and all that. And I get that. That's also was 20 years ago when they weren't. And that's not even a point that I came up with. Somebody pointed that out, that quarterbacks tend to develop quicker these days than they did in 2001 because of all the passing camps, because of all the offseason stuff that they do. And you can give me like this all you want.
I don't believe that.
Okay, look at all the quarterbacks.
They're all doing the Manning camps and the Elite 11s and all that kind of stuff. But what does that have to do to translate to real good football? And
hold on, because the offshoot of that is that they come to the NFL much more prepared. And then the evidence is, look at your top quarterbacks in the NFL.
Most of these quarterbacks come to the NFL and don't know how to make a call at the line. Don't know how to make a call.
Can I finish my point?
Yes.
Look at the elite quarterbacks around the NFL and look how long it's taken them to get to the point where you knew that guy's a dude.
Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, we're done, right?
Who else are the really good quarterbacks in the NFL? We want to go. Jalen Hurts, how long did it take him? Although we can argue is exactly how good. Dak Prescott, did it take him until his 5th year in the NFL?
I mean, people are saying Dak Prescott still hasn't delivered. So I don't know.
Okay. Joe Burrow, you're going to tell me Joe Burrow it took him a long time?
I think all of those individuals have better teams around them.
Give me a break with that. Oh, Lord.
So hold on. Lamar Jackson didn't inherit a Super Bowl contending team.
In 2018? No.
Patrick Mahomes didn't inherit a Super Bowl contending team.
He inherited a very good team, didn't he? You're going to tell me Patrick Mahomes' success from the time he's been in KC has been because of the team around him?
No, I'm going to tell you he's a phenomenally talented player, but let's not pretend like he didn't inherit a team that kept going to the AFC Championship game. He took over for Alex Smith.
No, it didn't, and that's why they brought in Mahomes, because they weren't getting far enough with Alex Smith.
They weren't getting far enough, but they were pretty damn far.
And I hate this. It's the
don't do that.
Constant excuse making. It's always about
excuses. You mentioned the elite quarterbacks, and Josh Allen. Okay, totally he did it himself. So I'm not
nobody did it all by themselves. Everybody has a degree of help around them, but this notion that Tua has nothing around them, has never had anything around them.
These other guys, he has nothing around him. That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Okay, and what I'm saying is it's been 4 years now. At this point, we should have a pretty good idea who he is as a quarterback.
Yeah, I have a pretty good idea.
Okay, in the years in the years before Patrick Mahomes became the starting quarterbacks, lost in divisional round, lost in divisional round, lost on the wild card. Not one AFC Championship game appearance there. Okay, so that's for Patrick
So
Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes inherited a playoff team. Okay, gotcha.
And Tua, when Tua became the starter in 2020,
With the best head coach in the NFL.
Sorry?
With the best head coach in the NFL.
Andy Reid's the best head coach in the NFL. And when
are you debating that?
When Lamar Jackson was drafted, the Ravens had not made the playoffs the previous 3 years. So
really? They won a Super Bowl the year before that, though.
No, they won a Super Bowl in 2012. Lamar Jackson was drafted in 2018. So no.
They didn't make the playoffs for 3 years before Lamar Jackson took over?
Yeah. I actually just looked it up. I didn't that's not Rain Man stuff. I just looked it up.
Wow. Did not know that.
Okay.
Damn, Joe Flacco wasn't lifting them to the heights that they were accustomed to. Curious what their record was.
And my point remains, I said what I said. It normally doesn't take a quarterback 5 years to get to that level where that guy's a dude. And I'm not saying
Drew Brees, it took 6.
2001. Okay.
But I mean, I'm not
saying it can't happen. I'm saying generally speaking, you kind of know.
Yeah. On that note, we will be back tomorrow where we will wrap up what the end of season press conferences with Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, sort of begin chartering a course for the off season. Obviously, you know how to find all our work, alldolphins.com, right there for free. Tell a friend. We will be here all off season. We thank you for your continued support. We thank you for the growth that we've seen in less than 1 year, because we haven't even been doing this for a year. We will actually be beginning season 2 of the All Dolphins podcast. I think we should begin season 2 probably when we hit 200 episodes. I think 200 is a nice round number to wrap up season 1. So hopefully you'll continue to be here with us. And as we've said previously, we don't know what we're doing. You tell us what we're doing. Hit us in the comments. We'll check them out. We'll stalk the comments. And hopefully you can give us some ideas how to continue to feed you what you want to eat. On that note, we are out. Appreciate you, Poupard, and I will see you tomorrow.
Back at you, Omar.